Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ over there. In parts unknown, he's all over the place. Who knows where Doug Glanville, former MLB outfielder, 9-year veteran, former MLB first-round pick, Penn graduate, played for the Cubs, the Phillies, the Rangers. He's the host of Classes in Session with Doug Glanville, appearing on the Marquee Sports Network. He's the co-host of one of my favorite podcasts, Starkville, with Jason Stark on the Athletic Baseball Show. Doug Glanville, how do you even have time to come on this podcast?
See, baseball, we learn how to change hats all the time. So I just put it on and then I just teleport wherever I'm going. And then, the family, we have 4 kids. And so I'm in a car. I just grab, if it's a podcast, I'll do it on the side of the road, wherever I need to do it. And it's game on, but loving baseball makes it easy. So I find a way.
I love it. Well, speaking of baseball, I'm curious, with spring training winding down here and going back to your playing days, was spring training something you enjoyed as a player?
I did. I enjoyed spring training, and part of it was just especially once you're kind of settled in as a major leaguer, you're like, okay, I'm not getting cut tomorrow. Once you kind of get to that place, you enjoy it because the fans are out, they're right there. It feels very grassroots, and takes you back to when you had that sort of ideal perspective on what baseball could be. Certainly as a fan. So I thought it was fun, and it's day, you finish at noon, you get your workout in, people go on golfing. You're always in Florida or Arizona, so weather's nice. I found it to be a really fun part, something I look forward to. And certainly it reflects the stages of your career. Early on, you're trying to make a team, and then at the end, you're holding on. But I even feel fortunate that I even had that kind of trajectory, because it could go sideways on you real quick. But I have a lot of good memories from spring training.
Well, that's what I was going to follow up with. So when you got older, obviously playing in the Major League Baseball for many years, was it more helpful to have a long spring training as you got older to kind of get more acclimated, or was it more helpful when you were just coming into the league, where you're getting all this awesome instruction from older guys and it's like, oh, we're here, this is happening, I'm about to do it? Or which one was it more beneficial for you?
I found it to be like a bell curve, really. Like in the beginning of your career, you kind of need that experience, and you're trying to prove. You may know that your swing is ready for 3 weeks, 4 weeks in, but you're also trying to build something else beyond just being productive on the field. You have to learn the defense, the signs, just the personnel. And I think at the end of your career, you kind of I found I spent so much time just stretching in the training room, just trying to get ready for the game. And my body just took a while to just kind of get, used to a lot of things. And the reason to break camp sooner, or wanting camp to break sooner as an older player, is you don't want to blow out in spring training. But so I think there's that. But in the middle, I found when I was at my best playing days, I remember umpires saying to me at second base, you're ready to go, man. Spring is over. Your swing is, and you did feel that way. You're like, I feel like I'm wasting hits or something. But yeah, it's definitely an adjustment that players have to learn how to make, which is in different stages of your career. How does your preparation evolve, and how does your sort of political acumen also evolve with it, to learn how to navigate new cultures, new managers, new teams, free agency, all those things that come with it.
I love it. The most overlooked part of being a great center fielder, in your opinion, is what?
Question. I think I would go back to the sort of the jumps and the instincts around positioning. Because certainly the data is there to say, oh yeah, here's where you play X, but in the end, there's always these little nuances that you have to adapt to side to side to kind of see what does your pitcher have it today? Are they locating? This hitter is hot right now. He's turning on everything. All these things you're factoring in, and then you have to, especially as a center fielder, you have to kind of lead everyone else to kind of be in sync. I think when you have it right, as any position, but as an outfielder, it's really like a single organism, right? You're moving, and you understand the spacing between each other, to know like, oh, that got a little bit big. Let me close that a little bit.
Mm.
I remember I interviewed Albert Almora Jr. one spring training,
Mm.
and I was the old head, and we were doing actually an interview where I threw the ball, and he would show me certain things. So I learned under Jimmy Pearsall, the legendary Jimmy Pearsall, and he was all about like your jumps and getting your, all these things. So he wanted you moving all the time. It didn't matter if it was a ball; you should have been anticipating where it's going to be hit. And so I explained all this to Almora, and I explained my jumps and how I was always leaning. And Almora Jr. said, let me think about that for a second. Because I said, oh, well, how do you get your jumps, Albert? He's like, well, I'm actually already there. That was his answer. I'm already there. And I had to think about it. My mind was like, wait a minute. The data is so precise. He's probably in the best position he should be in. So you have to be careful taking your jumps. You're running away from the high probability spot. So it became a different thing to think about. So, but I think within that framework of whether you're young, new, today's game, old game, you do have that extra factor of adjusting in game. And that's a big factor that takes into account a lot of things that often takes a lot of time to kind of digest and implement.
Interesting. Do great outfielders remember their greatest saves or greatest errors more as a player?
I look, you're making me do stuff in real time, which is a great sign of great question. It's like, um, I probably look back and think of great plays.
Okay.
I think of great plays. I imagine if I dropped the ball in Game 7 and lost the World Series, then that'd be different. I know certainly today it's harder because everything is social media. It's on, it's boom. But I think of great plays. Like I go back to even A-ball. I played in the Carolina League, and I got to play in the storied Bull Durham Park at Durham Bulls. And they always gave out the Durham Bulls gave out the defensive player of the game, and it was always given to the home team. So I was a visitor with Winston-Salem, and they had this. It wasn't even gravel; they had a rock outfield warning track. And I just I ran back, and they just made this over the catch slide in the rocks. They cut my arms up, and you could hear the announcer. So at the end of the game, they gave me the gift certificate.
They just had to.
So,
you got injured in the process.
yeah,
They're like, the guy put his body on the line in a different way. We have to give it to the visitor here.
Yeah, so it was cool. So there's a lot of moments like that where, especially when you go back and listen to the announcer, and you're like, okay, that definitely was unexpected. So it's probably one of my better plays. So I'd
Did
go
you
on the
see the
side.
gravel coming, or are you just
I knew
you're
it
just
was
in
there.
catch mode, or you're not even thinking
That's
about it?
fun.
Yeah.
I knew it was there because in pregame you're like getting the lay of the land, and I was like, I know it's there, but I got to do that. Now that was a way better moment than when I played in Cape Cod. And during the game, I tried to be cool, and I do the slide around the ball like catchers, and then you pop up and throw the ball. Well, I did that in Cape Cod in Bourne, and I went through the fence. Actually, went through the fence, and so I got stuck in the fence. So I had to roll the ball to the right fielder or center field, whoever was, and the umpire to stop the game so they can lift me, pull up the chain link, and get me out of the fence. So that was a moment I remember. It wasn't an error, but
Hey,
one of the crazy plays.
no one can ever say that Doug Glanville did not give it his all in center field. It didn't matter. Gravel, walls, it didn't matter. Doug Glanville was going to make his way to get the ball. I love it. Final thing before we get into some current baseball stuff. If you had entered MLB in this era, Doug, how different do you think you would be as a player than who you were when you played?
Oh, I'd have to be different if I wanted to have any shot at being around. And quite frankly, it might have been hard for me to make the team, the same way. I mean, there's a lot more power to the game, or that
The
production,
launch angle, everything. Yeah.
the launch angle, on base percentage, which was not my friend.
Yeah.
I would have had to hit. I had to be the 99 version of myself, where just getting hits, and that was just the way. But I think it'd be hard just based on the data and the the on base and all these things. So I have years where I probably would have fit in better, but I think the bigger picture of my career may have been harder because I was very aggressive, and I certainly didn't walk a lot, things like that. So, but defense might have been on a team, play defense, steal some bags, make contact generally. But it's a different game, and I would have definitely approached my preparation differently. There's so much more information. So I think stealing bases, I love this with the pitch clock and all that. That would have been good for me. and
Okay.
so there's elements that I would have thrived under. But the thing you realize about the game is, I used to say every like 3 years is a new generation.
Mhm.
It's much quicker than like larger societies 30 year. You have these real quick moments of like, oh wait a minute, now we have a pitch clock, now we have
Mhm.
this, now shifts. All these things change the complexion of what is seen as how to evaluate players, and you have to adapt throughout your career. My 9 year big league career, I felt like I had to change a lot
Mhm.
to really be able to say, okay, this is the culture today. And as you get older, it gets hard to do that.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things you take for granted of like how many times, like even in basketball, where Vince Carter had to evolve over and over again. And I think he has one of the more underrated NBA careers of all time, is to be one of the most athletic guys coming into the league, dunk contest guy, not known for his shooting, and then he carves out a 20-year NBA career because he evolved and changed and became a sharpshooter and became like a different version of his basketball playing days. Like I just think it's so much harder than people anticipate. For professional athletes, like it's not easy to just consistently evolve at your job. A lot of people's jobs, you just if you're an accountant, you wake up and you go to school and you learn accounting, and then you are an accountant for a long time. But if you're a major league baseball player, you're a national basketball player, like it's just different. You have to continually evolve if you want to stay in the league because, like you said, the league changes so much faster than a lot of people I think anticipate.
It's 100% true, and it's a great analogy. And I think of Josh Hader
Yeah.
saying, "Hey, you know what? I know my fastball is blowing people away, but I'm going to add something else. Like
Mhm.
two seam it. I'm going to do these things. Like it's hard. It's really hard when you're doing well to
Mhm.
say, "Oh, let me change something." Why you change something? You had a great year.
Yeah.
It's just staying ahead,
Mhm.
staying ahead. And the guys that do that and are hungry and stay ahead, they can have that longevity. And we sometimes simplify like, oh, Albert Pujols was just a great player, but you have to adapt. and
Yeah.
and even these incredible Hall of Famers constantly were rife with insecurity, right? It was just
Mhm.
like someone looking over your shoulder, the next guy's coming along. You're going to have it this spring? All of a sudden, your bat speed. You just do not know on a certainly year to year basis, but even on a game to game basis, where your confidence could be shot over facing a guy you just don't pick up the ball against. So I don't think it's a comfortable ride to consistency, but there's no doubt you have to put the work in and be very adaptable to be able to have even an inkling of consistency.
Doug, when you look at what the Cubs have done this offseason, do you see a team that's ready to win the NL Central in 2024?
Well, I think they see themselves in that light to be able to
Mm.
win. They part of standing pat for the most part. I mean, Bellinger kind of left and
Mm.
came back, so to speak,
Yeah.
is a lot of confidence in your team. When I looked at
Mm.
their rotation, I watched them a lot last season, I was like, this is a pretty good rotation. Like they
Mm.
can win with this rotation. They may not, Justin Steele has emerged as that ace, but early on you're like, well, who's the kind of ace?
Mm.
But then you have Hendricks, the experience, who just reinvents, is a perfect example.
Yeah.
I see them as a team that could win. They need that offensive consistency, like any team does, but that kind of bit them a lot last year. But yeah, they're going to be in the mix, and they were so close last year. Maybe
Mhm.
at the last window, it was like a correction of overachievement, but I thought they were actually good enough to get in, and they just faltered at the end. A lot of it was just their pitching and their depth got them. So I like the Cubs. They're going to be a team that's going to make some noise. I don't have them necessarily a World Series champion,
Yeah.
but I don't know what moves they're going to make at the trade deadline. It just depends on what they're willing to do.
What excites you most about the lineup with the Cubs? We like the rotation there. What is there, and maybe another level Dansby Swanson can still get to? Old friend Dansby here in Atlanta. Is there another level he can? He was funny though this week. I don't know if you saw his comments about like Mookie playing short now and like, oh, I guess I'm not gonna be. I was joking with my buddy John Taylor from Fangraphs last night, where I'm like, I hope this becomes a thing for Mookie because he's another just like he's just such a unbelievable athlete, almost a Tennessee Volunteer years ago. But he like moving positions to take all-star spots from different folks every year just because he's like, I'm gonna be an all-star at third base this year. I'm gonna be an all-star at first next year, and just take different guys' spots. And I
Right.
appreciate Dansby talking about that.
Well, spots and win their Gold Glove. That's the other
Yeah,
problem
that
you have
too.
with Mookie Betts. Like, he's like, "Oh, we just win the Gold Glove."
Mhm,
Guy's just renaissance man and super
mhm,
athlete, superhuman. But yeah, with the Cubs, Swanson is a guy that, he can be a little offensively streaky, but he's not
mm,
streaky in his effort, his approach, his focus. He's going to contribute, whether he's hitting or not. The first time I really met Dansby was it was at a Padres Braves game in San
mhm,
Diego, and I was calling the game. And he's in the cage, and I saw him the game before. We did Saturday and Sunday, and
mhm,
Saturday hit 2 hustle doubles. Like, they only were doubles because he busted out of the box.
mhm,
So I just wanted to go up and say, "Hey, man, I don't know you from a hole in the wall, but I appreciate how you approach the game." So that's what I said. And
mhm,
it was in between rounds, and I said, "Hey, Dansby." He said, "Man, hold on a second. I got a story to tell." So, all right, I waited, and he comes back over and he says, "You know what? I was a Braves fan growing up, grew up in the area. And you one time when I was like 10, you signed an autograph for me on my scorebook, and I always remembered that." That was it. Like, so it's sort of like you just think about like how he digests the game and his
mhm,
long track record of like memory and strategy and winning. Swanson's obsessed with winning, and
mhm,
in a good way. And so a guy like that has a great year, and Bellinger repeats what he's doing. You have Suzuki kind of going next level. You resolve kind of the first base questions, right? There's a lot of like if then statements, but this is a team that Hap has this all star, finds it again, so on. Then it's all about Craig Counsell being the X factor as a
yeah.
manager, kind of boom, bring it together, be at their best. And I bet on Craig Counsell. He's really good.
I can't wait for that first series between the Brewers and the Cubs,
Oh,
going with the
oh,
Cubs in Milwaukee, because that's just
mm,
something you don't see in baseball very much. You just, especially interdivision kind of trade,
mm.
like this is a totally different kind of scenario here. Man, I can't wait for that first series. Are you surprised that Fangraphs and Pacoda projections like the Cardinals the most coming into the season in the NL Central?
I am surprised. I
Okay.
know they got the method to their madness, and they're
Mhm,
really pretty accurate. So I'm not, I know they missed on the Giants a couple years ago, but they had an explanation. Everybody was old. Why are you guys
mhm,
having these career years all at the same time?
yeah.
So I get it. Cardinals were a disaster last year,
Mhm,
unequivocally. But where I see their upside, you can't deny, like, there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of kind of versatility in there. And I think certainly certain statements, if then statements, have to work out. But the talent's there, and I worry a little bit about the rotation. In, like, okay, Lance Lynn, he gave up 1,000 home runs last year.
mhm,
Will he find it again? I know one of the correction he was trying to make, and at the suggestion of the Dodgers, and is like, hey, throw that fastball, like,
mhm,
attack, get there. You're kind of trying to do too much with it, and his fastball can be multiple pitches, for example. Michaelis, guys like that. So
mhm,
you have the question mark about who are they going to be?
mhm,
So I think that's where, I guess, quote, the surprise was, because you were relying on some question marks to come through. But then when you go in the nitty gritty of that lineup, you're like, wow, there's a lot of talent here. Like
mhm.
Jordan Walker, guys. So I do understand that Newt Barr, starting off, uh, you know, at his best when he's healthy and at his best, and then a lot of the pieces that come together behind it. So yeah, I think, and then their division, some question marks, right?
Yeah.
Brewers, will they return? I think they're going to be really good, but different manager. Cubs, had that fall off at the end. I think the Reds are a lot better, but they're young, and the Pirates are always like, a mystery team. So
Mhm.
um, I think within all that, you see more wins for the
Yeah.
Cardinals, and that's part of it.
I mean, you could talk yourself into 4 different teams winning this division. I think it'd be
Yeah,
really hard. I mean, outside of the most diehard Pirates fan, talking
yeah,
themselves into a divisional run, I think that's, there's probably still a couple years away. But I mean, that's what I think so interesting about the NL Central this year is I think when you look across Major League Baseball, a lot of divisions. I mean, well, with Garrett Cole now on the sideline for a couple months, the AL East
cool.
opens up potentially a lot more out of the gate here. But I mean, you look at it and I'm like, I think this is the only division where 4 teams you could see yourself or you could see actually winning in. And I mean, the Cardinals with their older starting pitching and with that kind of gamble, it's just I think about the Mets last year, right? Where the Mets had this all-time older starting rotation and it backfired. And there's something if it goes well, then great. The Cardinals should have a great year, but you could also see this getting a little awry very quickly in St. Louis, right? I mean, it's a quiet, big gamble that they did this offseason.
It is, and
Mm.
like look, Contreras, for example,
Yeah.
coming in as a receiver, whole new system, Yadier
Mm.
Molina, retiring basically. That was a huge challenge for them because it's like you
Mm.
have to, when you had a generation of Cardinals players and an organization built around a kind of one-man machine behind home plate that could manage everything. And then it's how do you even come into that system, right? You had to basically build a new system.
Yep.
And I think it was really a challenge. And so what was the pitching like? It's hard to tell because they had such a huge transition at their catching position. I think, and losing Molina.
Mm.
So, I do think that is a opportunity for big growth. You mentioned the Yankees, Garrett Cole going down. It's like, it's like that's a whole. They might better go get Blake Snell like right now.
Yeah.
It's like, and look, I don't know if the Cardinals were in the running for Snell, but hey, get that like exclamation point,
Yeah.
and then you're a different ball club. So Cardinals go, they play to win. I mean, they,
Yeah.
sometimes you can't even see that. The tea leaves are kind of, but they find ways to execute. And I think Ali Marmol is a good manager. I think he's going to be a good manager for a long time. He's very transparent. He's straight up. And he doesn't miss anything. I mean, he studies, and it just was, just a disaster for him last year. I don't see that repeating.
Final one here. Is there a path to the Phillies winning the NL East this season, or the Braves just going to have too much firepower for the Phillies to keep up?
There's definitely a path. I mean, I
Okay.
watched the Phillies last year, and I'm like, this is definitely one of the top 3 teams in the game. You look at the lineup, I mean, ridiculous. And Marsh down there, Brendan Marsh is like he's a good player. I mean, like
Yeah.
they have a lot more depth than it may appear in the outfield. I think it was great that Harper took over first base and gave Schwarber a chance to DH in all these ways they've rotated around. And they're pitching, Zach Wheeler, Nola. I mean, Suarez is like big time game. He loves the postseason. I think Sanchez takes a leap, and they have a phenomenal bullpen. So yeah, I think they can be like if they won the division, I wouldn't bat an eye. I wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, the Braves are loaded as they are, but Fried's hurt a lot, and Morton's kind of up there, and I don't know what their rotation was a big question mark.
Yeah.
The whole time, and it eventually caught them. So, as it
Chris
was the
Sale,
Dodgers,
we hope.
Chris
Chris
Sale, we
Sale,
hope,
he's
right?
looked good this
Exactly,
spring, but I mean, we haven't seen a long Chris Sale season in years.
right. Big questions. I mean, look, they got great coaching. I mean, they
Mm.
really do coach. So
Yeah.
I think you get guys like out of nowhere, young guys come out and hold it together. But in the end, you kind of need that third starter postseason, right? You
Yeah.
need that third guy. It's not that they're going to go 9 innings; it's that they set up a bullpen, right, and they
Right.
prevent the bullpen from imploding. And the Braves are just like not quite there. And look, the Dodgers. I mean, what a great team! But that's what it got them
Yeah.
last year. Like they basically had like 4 All-Stars on the shelf all year. They had no rotation, and they're going in. They had to go get spend billions to get another guy. I'm like, wait a minute, you had Walker Buehler and Trevor Bauer and Arias and Gonsolin. I mean, but for all kinds of reasons, those guys weren't available. And so, who wins when you lose 4 out of 5 of your rotation? Pretty much nobody.
Yeah, baseball's hard like that. Like you do everything right, like even a team like the Dodgers, and it's still little things can just trip you up, and you're like, all right, I guess we gotta change things up and be a little bit more aggressive, or do this or that, and do whatever we can. Let's just go. Let me see here. Let me check my notes. Can we get a Shohei Ohtani into the fold? Is that going to fit into like that? This is an easy thing, and then we'll see if he's pitching again. But you just forget, like it's. I mean, as a baseball historian here, Doug, like, is there going to be a better 1-2-3 lineup? Like, it's ridiculous. The Dodgers are going to run out Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani, and Freddie Freeman at the top. They're like, in my lifetime, I'm 32. I don't recall a top 3 in their prime as dangerous as those 3.
I have no response to that. I mean, it's like I certainly in modern game, you ever see anything like it? I mean, I don't know where Ruth, 1, 2, 3, and the Yankees, 27 Yankees. I mean, this is incredible. And it was already like Betts and Freeman. You're like, oh my goodness, how do you get through this lineup? Then you throw Ohtani in like as if he's like sprinkler on your ice cream or something. It's like, what? I mean, so this is a lineup that's scary, and that's going to be just a lot of fun. And I'm sure they'll put up some runs. But once again, you got to pitch. You got to pitch. And Padres could Dylan Cease over there, like they can knock you right out in a heartbeat. So I
love
think
AJ Preller. AJ Preller is fantastic. He's never done. He's never done. He might give up Juan Soto in the same offseason that he trades for Dylan Cease. I love AJ Preller.
He's like whatever. He's like, I think Preller's gonna wear like a disguise, at games. I think he just might just do something like that and be like, I'm just gonna disguise myself and then make another trade.
I'm here for it. He's different. He's a different type of GM. I love diversity. I love versatility, and I love guys who just see the AJ Preller is just a totally different kind of GM. No one else operates like AJ Preller in San Diego. I love that.
No. He's like, I'm gonna do whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. Yeah. I might actually pitch today if I have to.
I might, and if you think I'm done acquiring shortstops, you're wrong. I'm gonna get one more. You think I'm done? I'll get another one. He'll play second. He'll play first. I don't care. We're gonna keep acquiring shortstops. But Doug, this has been fantastic. I greatly appreciate the time. What can the good folks look out from you all across the internet, the classroom, everything else this week?
I'm everywhere. I mean, I have a DougGlanville.com website. So that gives a little tidbits, but ESPN radio on the weekends, lead analyst for Sunday Night Baseball on radio. I do Classes in Session, a monthly show for Marquee Sports Network, which is the Cubs. And I'll do some games. I won't call them, but mostly be in studio for Marquee here and there. I teach at University of Connecticut, a sport and society class, which will end as the season kicks in. But I've been doing that for 7 years at different schools. And podcast Starkville, tune in usually Tuesday with my buddy, and mentor Jason Stark, who I loved as a kid at University of Pennsylvania baseball, reading his columns in the Philadelphia Inquirer. So I'm pretty much everywhere, and I love it. And it's pretty much all about baseball. So this is the time of year that I have a lot of joy in my life.
I love it. Well, enjoy the start to the season. Don't be too busy. Get some walks in, get some breaks. Go to Asheville. Go get some mountain time in there to refresh a little bit. It's a long season, as you know, Doug. But I appreciate the time, and we'll have to check back in again soon.
All right, Chase. Thanks for